Don't be naive of thinking China has 1.4 billion population. You only going to need 1 penny from each customer. Then we see a trend of increasingly see China as a China for China kind of strategy.
皆さんこんにちは。世界のスタートアップ情報を発信するスタートアップバックパッカーです。今回の動画では海外から中国へ進出するスタートアップを支援するアクセラレーターにインタビューを行いました。海外から中国へ進出するためのノウハウや注意点、そして中国マーケットの特徴について伺っていきたいと思います。それでは Let's go.
So now we have Wei from Xnode. Thank you so much. It's great to have you.
So hi everyone, I'm Wei, founder and CEO of Xnode. We are a Shanghai-based incubator accelerator. We mainly focusing on bringing international startups and scale-ups into China market. We also help Chinese startups and scale-ups expand outside of China into the international market. On top of that, we've been working with many corporates, working with them, developing the open innovation programs, including some Japanese corporates such as Hitachi, Murata. And we also have, over the past 2 years, have developed a venture builder company and in Singapore, and basically building the deep tech ventures. Surprisingly, I think, again, for any overseas startups enter into the China market, then the journey has never really been easy. China is not an easy market at all. There are many reasons why China is not easy. I mean, language, culture, obviously, but more importantly, if you look at the way to operate in China, then let's start from some of the basics, the infrastructure, the cloud services, for example, the softwares, the business tools, the search engines. None of these things that you are using in Japan, in Seoul, in Korea, in the US, in Europe, 90% of the applications are completely different. Here you use WeChat, Ali Cloud, and facial lock. And there's no Google, there's no Amazon, and a lot of things here are basically being a China version. So for any overseas companies, then it actually takes a while for them to get used to it. I think what makes China the most unique, perhaps different from the other countries, is the government sector, the public sector. The government SOEs are playing a very important role in shaping the policies, in driving the industrial development, in offering the grant and subsidies, and sometimes even getting involved in the competition. I know Japan has gone through the similar journeys in the early days of development since 60s and 70s. And in China, it's quite similar. And specifically, given that this is still very much a one-party state. So the whole mechanism of operating here, then, you will see is a very interesting dynamics, which is quite different from the rest of the world. The private sector is coexisting with the public sector. But it's very difficult for any overseas company to really to learn how to work with the state-owned enterprises. I think this will be relatively much more straightforward for the startup from outside of China to work with the privately-owned one, because it's very much a result-driven approach. With the state-owned ones, then it becomes a very difficult question. My personal sharing with any friends from outside of China has always been, if you don't know how to deal with the public sector, you haven't really figured out how to survive and thrive in China. That's one of the most unique reasons. The second part of China is fiercely competitive. Obviously, most of the companies in China, not many companies are really looking at the international market over the past 20, 30 years of development. Because China only opened itself from 1978. So we're literally talking about it's less than 45 years of growth. China has only gone through that period of growth. And given the size of the China market, 95% or even 99% of the companies are competing within China. Growing China, thriving China, winning China first before you think about other markets. And also because of size, the number of the startups on a daily basis being created. It's a fiercely competitive market. So it's going to be very difficult for the 2C company to really be able to figure out how to do business in China. In any country, you need to understand the customers. As I said, in a country with a very different culture, with different history, different infrastructure, different ecosystem shaping the framework, then to see business is quite difficult, I would say. To be business, on the other side, could potentially mean more opportunities. But even so, as I said, it doesn't mean that you know how to work. Okay? And obviously people talk about the copycats, the intellectual property thing. I don't think, to be honest, that's really the most challenging thing anymore. Because the go-to-market, the pivoting, the upgrading here in this country has been so fast that you can forget about whatever this copycat thing. You just have to be concentrated on your growth and constantly be on alert of the potential competitors coming after you. I don't think it's truly about intellectual property. It's about the speed, the go-to-market, and also the scale and the size to be able to win. So for example, for a 2C company, if you not have enough capital, enough team, and a proper understanding of the customers, and knowing this could potentially be a product market fit, I think it's going to be very difficult for any company outside of China to win in China. And by the way, over the past 40 years, China has already fostered and China has grown a huge number of domestic companies, which are becoming globally competitive. So you are also going to compete with these companies. Don't get me wrong. And by the way, you are startup, you are scale up. You are not Sony. You're not Honda. You are not Murata. Okay. So you have limited resources. So you are very foreign to the culture. And also, by the way, don't forget about geopolitical situation. The whole China-US sanctions and the divided world, all these things also contribute to the further of the distance between China and the rest of the world. That makes expansion to China obviously more difficult, but it doesn't mean that there are no opportunities. My advice to the Japanese startups and scale-ups to enter the China market will be as follows. Don't be naive of thinking China has 1.4 billion population. You only going to need 1 penny from each customer, then you'll become a big company. That's not easy. Just don't think that way. And secondly, China is quite competitive, and whatever the advanced technology you think you have might not necessarily be the really advanced level here in China. It's all about the product market fit. Not necessarily has to be the technology itself. And number 3, in terms of the go-to-market, how to enter China market. Instead of setting up your wholly foreign-owned enterprise, do it entirely by your own. I think in light of the current political climate and also increasingly domestic competitive market and also the lack of resources, a number of all these reasons combined, it's wise to think about to find a partner first. So instead of doing things entirely on your own, maybe you should consider finding a Chinese local partner to help you to solve the go-to-market, to help you maybe without some even domestic fundraising. We see a trend of increasingly see China as a China for China kind of strategy. So if I go to China, then this China market is China for China. And the good thing is about China is is big enough. It's the world's second largest market. Even if you adopt a China for China strategy, the size itself, if you do well, is still okay. It's still going to be massive. And number 3, be very careful in selecting the partner. Okay. I mean, don't jump to a conclusion too quick. And because again, I mean, as everywhere, there are a lot of storytellers, the people say, hey, we can help you. But are you really the one that can help? The reason why we are here is basically we create so-called market entry programs. The main purpose is to basically offer you a 1 month and 2 months, sometimes even 3 months of programs for you to figure out, first of all, do I have a product market fit? And secondly, can you help matchmaking with some of potential partners and customers or distributors or fundraisers, so that by the time after a couple of months, I sort of realized, I should leave China. China's no hope for me. Then don't waste your time. Don't spend 12 months and wasting the time and at the end of it, you realize there's no hope. Okay. Within a short period of time, doing this whole thing and create a PMF understanding. If it's no go, fly back home. Try other markets. If it's a yes, then consider what's the next step. But at least you figured out in a very systematic way about the whole China 101 thing. Don't just come by yourself and say, I understand China. I have advanced technology. I have a superior product. Chinese people will buy. Don't think that way. So that's my advice to the Japanese companies. So the other thing I think potentially could be very, very relevant to Japan is because China is so competitive and recently also because of the slowing down of the economy, the increasingly number of Chinese companies think of expanding to Japan, want to explore the Japan market. We have seen a lot of SaaS related companies to B2B companies trying to tap into the Japan market. So some of these companies, when they enter the Japan market, for them it's the same thing. They haven't used Google. They don't use the same social media they've been using. The entire infrastructure in Japan is not anything they are familiar with. So my advice to the Japanese startups and scale-ups perhaps is the Chinese ones will actually look for partners in Japan. So if in a similar area that potentially can collaborate, might be another way of looking at the value for the Japanese companies because they're going to need help anyway. Japan has been known as a difficult international market.
You told me about how you need to be connected with like the government too. Is this like a must to be like connected with like the government?
I wouldn't say it's a must, but it's a must to understand how it operates. You don't necessarily have to deal with them on a daily basis. Not necessarily, but you need to understand how it operates because that's a very important part of the Chinese economy. If you don't really understand how it operates, then you're missing a very significant piece of it. And don't forget, the public sector is the one that dictates the policy, dictates the trends, dictates the grants and subsidies. Sometimes even creating the trade barriers. Don't forget, Japanese government did it many years ago.
I see. So understanding what they're thinking and they're doing and all that. This is like my first time in Shanghai and it's pretty like hard to really get into like the local community. That's what I'm feeling right now. Is it possible for like an early startup to come here and get into like the startup ecosystem and like meet, I don't know, like VCs or I know Xnode is always there, but
well, that's why also part of the reason why you come to us. But obviously we're not the only one. We're definitely not the only one. There's Startup Grind, the international startup community, there are other, and even under the Shanghai, there's a virtual community called a Startup Gateway. These are some of the private sector players. I mean, if you even find Shanghai being difficult, imagine you're going to move into this second tier, third tier cities.
Yeah.
That'd be more even difficult. So that's why Shanghai has always been perhaps the best place as a springboard to come here first, have a taste, have a PMF, and feel about the market. And once you're settled and feel confident and start building a team and then set up a foothold, then you start to use Shanghai and then go into the second tier and then the other parts of the China. The journey won't be easy. It won't be smooth.
Are there any tendencies for early stage startups that are successful here in China?
Very hard. The ones that are successful, I think, will be pretty much becomes a Chinese company. That's why coming back to my suggestion regarding the strategy, China for China. If you want to create a China for China company, what does that mean? That pretty much means you are handing over the company, the potential possibility of China, to a trusted Chinese local partner, or a person as the head, because it's China for China. This is very different from 5, 10, 20 years ago because of geopolitical issues.
What's a good way to find local partners?
For example, start joining, being part of our community.
Oh yeah.
And then you quickly start to know the like-minded people. And through that, it's like a ripple effect. You basically get into the hub first and then reach out to the different parts. Then you start gradually, quickly learn about this. Same as everywhere. Because so into Silicon Valley, the same thing.
Yes.
But it's just in China then, because it's not that international. Okay? Not everyone speaks English. And not everyone comes from different countries. China is still very much a Chinese majority, dominated place. So therefore, you better come to join a place that you feel very comfortable. That you not only find like-minded people, you also seek advice, you get help.
But I think there's always the language barrier too. But is that even possible if you're a non-Chinese speaker here?
If there's only one city, again, as I said, will be suitable for that is Shanghai. If you go to other second tier, third tier cities, wow, I think you will hardly hear anyone speak English at all. Japan is similar. Don't get me wrong.
So what's a good way to actually get in touch with Xnode?
Go to the website of www.thexnode.com and start from there.
Okay.
You can send us emails or you can find our people on LinkedIn. We're here to help.
And you would be interested in being in touch with big corporates too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've been working with corporates. But our biggest passion is still to help entrepreneurs, help startups, and empower them.
So if you're corporate too, definitely check Xnode out. We're about to wrap up. Do you have anything to add or any questions?
Well, perhaps I can just one sentence to summarize. China is difficult, but nothing is impossible. So welcome to explore China.
Thanks so much. It was very inspirational.
Thank you.
いや、もう中国マーケット、本当に面白いですよね。もうかなりマーケットは大きいので、ビジネスチャンスはあるとは思うんですけど、やはり現地の中国企業パートナーが必須になってくるということで、そこがかなり抑えないといけないポイントなのかなと思います。私も実際中国にいるとき、やはりその中国語が話せないとなかなか輪に入れない時だとか、結構難しかったり、そういう言語的だとか文化的な壁があったりはするので、そういったところも理解した上で進出することが重要なのかなと思います。チャンネル登録といいね、コメント忘れずにお願いします。ありがとうございました。